Compliant.
বিনয়ী, শিষ্ট, বাধ্য।
If you are willing to submit to someone's request, then you are compliant. Parents like it when their teenagers are compliant and follow the rules. Teenagers, on the other hand, are probably not as compliant as parents would like to think. The adjective compliant can also describe something that conforms or is agreeable. If you buy computer software that is not compliant with your operating system, it won't work properly.
Synonym.
Docile, flexible, willing, manageable, meek, submissive, tractable.
Antonym.
Inflexible, obstinate, stubborn, unyielding, recalcitrant. Conciliatory.
সমঝোতামূলক, বন্ধুত্বপূর্ণ, মৈত্রীসূচক।
If you're in a fight with a friend and you want to end it, you should make a conciliatory gesture, such as inviting her to a party you're having. Conciliatory describes things that make other people less angry. The context is often a situation in which a dispute is settled by compromise. A synonym is propitiatory, though this adjective usually refers to avoiding the anger of someone who has the power to harm. In the word conciliatory, the ori suffix means relating to or doing, and the root is from Latin conciliatus, from conciliare to bring together, win over, from concilium counsel.
Synonym.
Appeasing, assuaging, ironic, mollifying, pacific, placating, placatory, propitiative.
Antonym.
Antagonistic, fighting, refusing, stubborn. Condone.
ক্ষমা করা,
If you condone something, you allow it, approve of it, or at least can live with it. Things that are condoned are allowed, even if everyone isn't exactly thrilled about it. People often say, "I don't condone what he did, but I understand it." Condoning is like excusing something. People seem to talk more about things they don't condone than things they do condone.
Synonym.
Excuse, forget, forgive, ignore, wink at.
Antonym.
Regard, respect, veto, censure, condemn, forbid, prevent. Confound.
বিভ্রান্ত করা, হতবুদ্ধি করা, বানচাল করা, বিহ্বল করা।
If you have an identical twin, you've probably tried dressing alike so that people confound you with, or mistake you for, one another. The verb confound means both to mistake and to confuse. If you decide to treat yourself to a delicious dessert, you might find yourself confounded by the overwhelming number of choices.
Synonym.
Amaze, astonish, astound, baffle, bewilder, discombobulate, dumbfound.
Antonym.
Comfort, enlighten, explain, explicate, relate. Connoisseur.
গুণগ্রাহী, শিল্পকলা প্রভৃতির সমজদার, রসজ্ঞ ব্যক্তি।
A connoisseur is a person who, through study and interest, has a fine appreciation for something, like the connoisseur who can identify the clarinet player on a jazz recording by the sound of his inhalations alone. A connoisseur is an authority in his field, someone who has expert knowledge and training, especially in the arts. A connoisseur may also be someone with an extremely developed sense of taste, like the connoisseur who can identify a rare wine by a flavor others can't even detect.
Synonym.
Aficionado, buff, devotee, dilettante, aesthete, arbiter, cognoscente, critic, epicure.
Antonym.
Ignoramus. Contention.
তর্কবিবাদ, যুক্তি, বিতর্ক, বৎসা, বাদানুবাদ।
There is nothing content, or satisfying, about being in contention, and that's probably because the word contention means being in a competition that only one side can win. And in this corner, the contender is heard at most boxing matches to describe each of the fighters about to go into contention in the ring. Sometimes, though, a contention can be a battle of words or a struggle between two parties over a single point. The expression bone of contention describes a narrow object of disagreement that reaches the level of strife, or contention.
Synonym.
Argument, conflict, controversy, dispute, rivalry, struggle.
Antonym.
Accord, agreement, harmony, concurrence, ratification. Contrite.
অনুশোচনা, অনুতপ্ত।
We are sorry to inform you that the adjective contrite means regretful, remorseful, or even guilty. Someone who feels remorse or guilt is contrite, and in addition to feeling sorry, part of the definition includes wanting to atone for having done something wrong. The word comes from the Latin roots com meaning together and terere which means to rub. It's also related to the Latin word conterere and is defined as to bruise. In the field of theology, being contrite is being remorseful for past sin and resolved to avoid future sin.
Synonym.
Apologetic, humble, remorseful, repentant, sorry, attritional.
Antonym.
Hurtful, indifferent, mean, unrepentant. Conundrum.
প্রহেলিকা, ধাঁধা।
The tricky word conundrum is used to describe a riddle or puzzle, sometimes including a play on words or pun. One of the most famous conundrums is the riddle of the Sphinx, famously in the play Oedipus the King by Sophocles. Oedipus encounters the Sphinx, a mythical beast, who asks him, "What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening?" The answer is a person, crawling as a child, walking as an adult, and using a cane in old age. The scary thing is that if the Sphinx asked you the riddle and you didn't know, she'd eat you.
Synonym.
Enigma, mystery, riddle, brain teaser, mystification. Contentious.
বিতর্কিত, কলহপ্রিয়, কলহপরায়ণ, ঝগড়াটে।
A contentious issue is one that people are likely to argue about, and a contentious person is someone who likes to argue or fight. Contentious issues get people angry and in a fighting mood. On the other hand, some people always seem to be in a fighting mood, no matter what the issue is. People like that are contentious too. Some issues are very controversial. They're also contentious, because people tend to argue about them, and the arguments will probably go on forever.
Synonym.
Antagonistic, combative, argumentative, belligerent, disagreeable, factious, perverse, petulant.
Antonym.
Agreeable. Converge.
একত্রিত হওয়া, একই বিন্দুতে মিলিত হওয়া। একই বিন্দুতে মিলিত হবার জন্য কাছাকাছি আসা। একই কেন্দ্রের অভিমুখী হওয়া।
Use the verb converge to describe something that comes together at a common point. Thousands of Elvis fans plan to converge on the small Arkansas town where unconfirmed sightings of the deceased superstar eating at a local barbecue restaurant had been widely reported. 2 roads, a room full of politicians, or a group of rabid fans, when things come together from different points they converge. Converge traces back to the Latin word vergere, meaning to bend or to turn. The prefix con means with, a good way to remember that things that converge come together. Don't confuse converge with diverge, which means the opposite, move away, because the prefix dis means apart.
Synonym.
Assemble, concentrate, mingle, coincide, combine, concenter, concur.
Antonym.
Disperse, scatter, differ, disjoin. Convoluted.
জটিল।
If something is convoluted, it's intricate and hard to understand. You'll need to read over your brother's convoluted investment scheme a few times before deciding whether or not to go in on it. Convoluted comes from the Latin convolutus for rolled up together. Its original meaning in English was exactly that, first for eaves coiled up on themselves, then for anything rolled or knotted together.
Over time, convoluted took on its metaphorical sense of complicated and intricate, which is how it's generally used today.
Synonym.
intricate, labyrinthine, perplexing, puzzling, tangled, tortuous,
Antonym.
direct, simple, straight, straightforward, understandable, clear. Craven.
নীচ, কাপুরুষ, ভীরু।
A craven man is no Superman or Spider-Man, nor is he a firefighter or a soldier. A craven man is the opposite of those guys. He has not an ounce of courage. In The Wizard of Oz, the cowardly lion could have been called the cravenly lion, but that didn't sound quite right. Use craven as you would cowardly. A craven leader is scared to lead, while a craven gymnast stays on the mat and avoids the ball and beam.
Synonym.
Mean-spirited, dastardly, gutless, lily-livered, poltroonish, pusillanimous,
Antonym.
bold, brave, courageous, heroic, strong.
Complacent.
সুশীল, শিষ্ট, বিনয়ী, ভদ্র, অন্যকে খুশি করতে আগ্রহী, বিনয়ী।
If only the world were populated entirely with complacent people. Complacent means willing to do something to please others, and complacent people or animals are wonderful to be around. Don't confuse complacent with its near homonym complacent. Both derive from the Latin complacere to please, but while complacent means willing to do something to please another, complacent means smug and self-satisfied, something that you want to avoid when you're on the winning team.
Synonym.
Accommodating, amiable, conciliatory, deferential, generous, indulgent, solicitous, submissive.
Antonym.
Antagonistic, disagreeable, discontented, dissatisfied, obstinate. Compendium.
সংকলন, সংক্ষিপ্তসার, সারসংক্ষেপ।
When you search an online encyclopedia, you are searching a compendium of information on just about everything. A compendium is a comprehensive collection of something. You can also use the word compendium to describe a collection of written works. If you gather all of the anecdotes your parents and grandparents have told you into a book, you'll have created a compendium of family stories. The plural of compendium is either compendiums or compendia.
Synonym.
Abstract, brief, conspectus, digest, epitome, essence, guide.
Antonym.
Unabridgment. Commensurate.
সামঞ্জস্যপূর্ণ।
The word commensurate has to do with things that are similar in size and therefore appropriate. Many people think the death penalty is a commensurate punishment for murder. In other words, the penalty fits the crime. When things are commensurate, they're fair, appropriate, and the right size. If you got a ticket for jaywalking, you shouldn't get 10 years in prison. That penalty is not commensurate with the crime. The word commensurate is usually followed by with or to. One thing is commensurate with or to another.
Synonym.
Comparable, compatible, consistent, proportionate, sufficient, appropriate.
Antonym.
Incompatible, unsuitable, inadequate, inappropriate, incommensurate, unacceptable. Cogent.
প্রবল, অকাট্য, অনিবার্য, জোরালো।
When you make a cogent argument, it means your argument is clear and persuasive. In these days of 24-hour entertainment news and sound bite-sized explanations of complex government policy, it's hard to find a cogent argument amidst all the emotional outbursts. Cogent comes from a Latin word meaning to drive together, so cogent thinking is well organized, it hangs together.
Synonym.
Compelling, convincing, forceful, persuasive, telling, weighty, apposite.
Antonym.
Ineffective, unimportant, impotent, invalid, weak. Coda.
একটি বাদ্যযন্ত্র রচনার সমাপ্তি বিভাগ।
A coda is a concluding segment of a piece of music, a dance, or a statement.
It's usually short and adds a final embellishment beyond a natural ending point. Coda comes from the Latin word cauda, meaning tail, and it's good to think of it as a tail tacked onto something that in and of itself is already a whole.
Usage examples.
The advertising agency and the tobacco company were delighted by the unpaid publicity and were only too happy to confess to the error in the coda. What do you want, good grammar or good taste?
Synonym.
Afterword. Postscript. Summation. Epilogue. Swan song.
Antonym.
Beginning. Commencement. Introduction. Opening. Start. Forward. Preface. Coagulate.
জমাট বাঁধা, ঘনীভূত হওয়া।
When liquid starts to thicken and become solid, it coagulates. When you get a cut, the blood flowing from the wound will coagulate, it will start to clot and form a solid scab so you will stop bleeding. Many liquids have the potential to coagulate. If the cream you just poured into your coffee is spoiled, you'll see the cream coagulate as it curdles into little floating chunks. If someone has a heart condition that may result in a heart attack, he or she might take medication that keeps the blood in the arteries from coagulating, or dangerously thickening.
Synonym.
Glabber. Coalesce. Compact. Condense. Congeal. Consolidate. Curdle.
Antonym.
Disperse. Liquefy. Melt. Soften. Dilute. Dissolve. Uncloak.
Chicanery.
ছলচাতুরি, প্রতারণা, প্রবঞ্চনা, কপট।
Have you ever gotten the sense that politicians or corporate leaders will say anything to turn public opinion their way? This tricky kind of deceit and manipulation is called chicanery.
Besides chicanery, another funny-sounding word for trickery is shenanigans. Whereas the former is always used in the singular and involves deceptive language, the latter is usually used in the plural and refers to the actions of a person. Your crazy neighbor is up to his old shenanigans if he has begun doing weird stuff again, but if a politician's chicanery is exposed, he will lose public trust and not be returned to office in the next election cycle.
Synonym.
Dishonesty. Duplicity. Machination. Stratagem. Artifice.
Antonym.
Honesty. Openness. Truthfulness. Forthrightness. Caustic.
দগ্ধকারক, দাহক, ক্ষয়কারক।
Use the adjective caustic to describe any chemical that is able to burn living tissue or other substances, or, figuratively, a statement that has a similarly burning effect. Caustic in this sense means harshly critical. In the chemical sense, a near synonym is corrosive. In the figurative sense, near synonyms are biting, scathing, and sarcastic.
The source of the word caustic is Latin causticus, from Greek caustikos, from kain to burn.
Synonym.
Abrasive. Acerbic. Acid. Biting. Mordant. Pungent.
Antonym.
Bland. Kind. Mild. Nice. Sweet. Calm. Soothing. Unsarcastic.
Catalyst.
প্রভাবক, অনুঘটক।
A catalyst is an event or person causing a change. Getting kicked out of your parents' house might be a catalyst for becoming more independent. The noun catalyst is something or someone that causes a change and is derived from the Greek word katalyne, meaning to dissolve. It can be somewhat ordinary, like when moving to a warmer climate was the catalyst for getting a short, sporty haircut. Or it can be major, like how the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire is said to be a catalyst of World War I.
Synonym.
Impetus. Incentive. Motivation. Stimulant. Adjuvant. Agitator.
Antonym.
Block. Hindrance. Blockage. Preventer. Prevention. Castigation.
নিন্দা, কঠোর সমালোচনা।
If your coach yells at your team for sloppy play, her post-game speech might be called a castigation. A castigation is a harsh verbal reprimand. No one likes to be on the receiving end of castigation. The word comes from the Latin castigus, which means to make pure.
Synonym.
Chastisement, discipline, penalty, reproof, retribution, scolding.
Antonym.
Award, forgiveness, pardon, reward.
Capricious.
খামখেয়ালি, চঞ্চল, অনির্ভরযোগ্য, অনিয়মিত।
Capricious is an adjective to describe a person or thing that's impulsive and unpredictable, like a bride who suddenly leaves her groom standing at the wedding altar.
You can criticize a fickle-minded person as capricious, but it could just as well describe quickly changing weather, as in capricious spring storms. It's the adjective form of the noun caprice, which means a sudden change of mood.
Arbitrary, fickle, flighty, helter-skelter, impulsive, quirky, temperamental, volatile, wayward, whimsical.
Antonym.
Constant, predictable, reasonable, sensible, stable, steady, staid, steadfast.
Cacophonous.
বেসুরো, কর্কশ।
The adjective cacophonous describes loud, harsh sounds, like the cacophonous racket your brother and his bandmates make while trying to learn how to play their instruments. To correctly pronounce cacophonous, accent the second syllable, Cacophonous. It is related to the Greek words kakos, meaning bad, evil, and phone, or voice. You may feel like you're facing something evil if you're bombarded by the cacophonous sounds of, say, political pundits yelling at one another, or the chaotic sounds of traffic and voices on a busy urban street.
Cacophonous is the opposite of harmonious.
Synonym.
Discordant, noisy, raucous.
Antonym.
Quiet,